Weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. Please press button now. No, number 1.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornblum, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network on this football Thursday night in South Carolina. I don't know about you, but my brain is scrambled over what day of the week it is because we had high school football last night, so this should be Saturday. We've got college football tonight, so this should be Saturday. We've got high school football tonight, so it should be Friday. So I really don't know. I'm guessing it's Thursday with high school football tonight, a little bit of high school football tomorrow, Gamecocks tonight, Limestone playing tonight, NFL tonight, and then I guess Clemson plays on Saturday, and Coastal Carolina plays on Saturday and others. So I'm all confused, but we are here. We're weathering the storm. And, of course, first things first, wish everybody along the coast, PD area, the best over the next 24 hours. Could get a little tough for you down there, but you've been through it before, and you'll come out of it just fine. Be sure to stay tuned to the Sports Talk station you're listening to in your area down there for all the information and updates as this storm moves through. The latest is it has returned as a Category 1 hurricane, expected to hit the Charleston area about noon tomorrow. It's supposed to start raining tonight throughout the state. I'm already seeing the wind pick up here. We're outside of Williams-Brice Stadium. It's overcast. It's cool. The winds are picking up pretty strongly. But here at Sports Talk, we are fortunate to not only have sports guys centered around the state, but in particular tonight, we're better than any of your weather stations because we've got Smitty located in the Grand Strand, and we have Bergie located in the PD. So they can tell us exactly what's happening with the weather conditions in their locale. Smitty, we'll start with you since you're first in line for Ian. How's it feeling down there?
Well, it's about like it is in Columbia currently. But today, the city of Georgetown issued sandbags to anybody that wanted them to help them, protect their property, protect their homes. But right now, we've got the breeze blowing, and you can just tell. You have that sense of the pending storm because of the way, we've all seen these hurricanes hit the coast before, and it just feels that way. And we just hope this one's not as bad as others. And Georgetown is usually lucky. It has to do with barrier islands and all the other things. I think Charleston is probably the one most vulnerable right now. And I'm certainly, as you said, thinking and praying about our friends right there in Charleston, even though it's going to hit us all along the coast. I know it always floods right there in Charleston. They have all the historic buildings they're trying to protect.
Yeah. And how about you, Bergie? What's happening a little bit more inland there in the Sardis, Florence, Timmonsville area?
Almost a carbon copy of what you just heard from Smitty. We've got gusty winds have had for much of the day today. It's been overcast since this morning and nice and cool. It's rare to have a hurricane when it's in the 60s. Normally we get these things when it's 90 degrees and then you fear about your power being knocked out afterwards. Obviously, that would be, first world problems. But nonetheless, normally after these things push through, it's just miserable. But the weather we've got right now is nice. But I'm listening to Smitty talk about that sense of impending doom. I've always wondered what it would have been like to be around 100, 125 years ago, long before weather radar and the like, and how you would determine what was going on, especially if you live along the coast. When you started seeing clouds forming, and was it just a typical rain shower, or was it something much greater? And clearly, judging by some of the pictures that I saw out of Fort Myers, Florida today, just devastation across the western part of the state along the Gulf. And I actually have in-laws in Jacksonville, and my sister-in-law, they live around the Daytona Ormond Beach area. And my father-in-law, and you'd have to know him, but he's got a really, really quick-witted sense of humor. He sent us a picture yesterday, tweeted or text a message, myself and Heidi, my wife, his daughter, a picture of about 4 leaves lying in their driveway. And his caption was, "Gosh, we're getting blown away." Now, today, that may actually be indeed the case, because that hurricane ran over the top of Jacksonville before it exited Florida into the Atlantic Ocean. So, yeah, I echo those sentiments that let's keep our thoughts and prayers on everybody along the coast, because the next 48 hours, even in South Carolina, are not going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that, and I happen to have an aunt, my last surviving blood aunt, that I guess it's more married into the family aunt, but she's an aunt nonetheless. And she happens to live with her kids and all separately, but in Naples, Florida, right there where the storm came into Florida. And so I just checked on her, and she said, "Oh, we're fine. Our building, she's in I guess, kind of a high-rise apartment complex that was recently built. And she says its structure is very strong, and they're blocked by other buildings, so they don't get the wind." She said they never lost power, and her kids and all came over to stay with her, so they're in great shape. And then she's a big Eagles fan. Started telling me about going out to sports bars to watch the Eagles play their game. She's from Philadelphia, so I'm like, that just sounds like you. She going out and hanging out in the bars, watching the Eagles play their game. She loves those Eagles. So anyway, a little bit of insight from down that way.
Yeah, Floridians sort of take hurricanes the way I would imagine Northerners take big snowstorms. Oh, it's going to snow a foot. Oh, well, whatever. We'll deal with it. Same thing down in Florida. They've gone through so many hurricanes over the years that if you're a native or if you lived in Florida for any length of time, you just kind of get used to them. Now, you don't get hurricane category 4 and 5s all that often, but still, they sort of take that as a badge of honor, being able to handle bad weather coming in from the ocean.
Well, I think that was like the first huge storm like that to come up through Tampa in like a century. And so you're right. You might get used to some, but you don't get used to that. I mean, we in South Carolina are used to hurricanes, but we weren't used to something like Hugo back in 1989. That thing was just mammoth. And there are hurricanes, and then there are hurricanes. This one, thank goodness for right now, appears to be just going to reach a category 1 and nothing bigger than that, and will eventually, rain itself out as it moves. I don't know if it's going to move across the state or go up the coast into North Carolina and further into Virginia and up that way. We're going to have to wait and see, because, I mean, nobody thought it was going to go back across the state of Florida and regather itself in the Atlantic Ocean. So, all right. So tonight we have, I'm only going to be here till 6:30. I'll make way for Chris and Smitty and Pat the rest of the way, but loaded up show tonight. Kerry Tharp will join us at 6:35. He had an appointment on Tuesday, and then it was our fault last night, so we got him tonight at 35. David Shelton back at 6:50 to talk about high schools last night and tonight. The Pastor of Pain, the Pop on football, Corey Miller, 7:05. Will and the Thrill at 7:35. And Jamie Chadwell, hear from him tonight, Coastal Carolina. And they're moving the game time back for their game on Saturday, Chris?
Forward, I guess, actually. It's instead of kicking off at 4 o'clock on Saturday at Brooks Stadium, it's actually going to begin at 7 o'clock. They had to, and I'm wondering, because of the later kickoff, if Georgia Southern is not planning on just coming up to Conway on Saturday, drive in day of the game and come back, because tomorrow around Statesboro and trying to get up the coast of South Carolina, not going to be all that easy. So I'm guessing, I don't know this to be the case, but I would feel pretty certain that Georgia Southern has said, you know what, we're just going to make this a day trip. And boy, that's a tough day trip for your conference opener, which is what the Eagles are facing on Saturday.
Okay, now you're confusing me. Now, if you're moving it forward, wouldn't it be earlier? If you're moving it back, wouldn't it be later?
Well, let's see. We're coming up on, we just came off of spring forward. So what did we do with the clocks when we went to daylight saving time? Move them ahead an hour, right?
I don't see where that makes any sense about this. I mean, if you're supposed to kick off at 1 o'clock and you're going to kick off at let's say 5 o'clock, you're backing the kickoff time, are you not? You're not moving it ahead.
No, they're not kicking off at 5 a.m. They were scheduled to kick off at
No, they're
4
kicking
p.m.
off at. They were
Now they're
supposed to
kicking
kick off at
7 p.m.
4. Now they can kick
Right.
off at 7. So they're moving
Right.
it back 3 hours.
No, back.
That's what I'm
would
saying.
be-
They're moving the
back would be
kickoff
1
back
o'clock,
3
wouldn't it?
hours.
Somebody help me out
Hey,
here.
Smitty, who's
settle
on
this.
first? Who's on first?
Yes,
How can you?
that's precisely
can you
right.
How can you move it back and be earlier? That doesn't.
Well,
I'm just trying to get my head around
I think what Chris is saying is the clock is being moved forward, right?
Correct. Instead of a 4 o'clock kick time,
You actually
it is now
can't
a
go
7
back in
o'clock
time.
kick
It's a 7 o'clock. You're moving it forward to 7, forward in the day. But I understand what Corn is saying makes sense too.
How
because
are you?
back a kick
I don't
off.
want to make a big deal. I don't want to make a big deal about this, but how in the hell are you moving it forward if you're kicking off 3 hours later?
All right, well, look
That's
at it
not
this way,
forward,
Corn.
that's back.
Corn, look at it this way. If
I'm
your
just-
watch is an hour off, if I say, oh, Corn, I just looked down at your watch, you're an hour off. It's actually 1 o'clock, not 12 o'clock, right? So if you move your watch to 1 o'clock, what have you done with it? You've moved it forward, just like the kickoff.
Okay, I'm going to have to think on this one a little bit because that's just not resonating in my brain. On to other things. I just don't get it, but maybe I'll understand it, as I'm driving home tonight after watching this game. Let's talk quickly about the Gamecocks and the Bulldogs because, of course, this is a game South Carolina's favored by like 38. And you got to be a little careful here if you're South Carolina with South Carolina State. A short week of preparation for both teams. Now, State has some talent. They got a quarterback who can throw it, and they got a receiver who can go and get it. They are going to get their running backs back, according to Buddy Pugh. Flowers is an excellent running back for them. And, South Carolina State doesn't feel like after winning the HBCU national championship, they don't feel like there's some little FCS team that you're just going to walk over, even though UCF beat them pretty solidly to open the season. South Carolina, they need to build on what they did last Saturday, play solid football, run the football, be focused on that, build themselves a big third quarter lead, and then start getting people out of there, rest as many people as they can, come out healthy, and then start focusing on that Kentucky game when they can, because that's going to be huge for them. I mean, this, with all due respect to South Carolina State, Chris, I mean, this should be a game the Gamecocks put in their back pocket pretty early.
Absolutely. And Phil, I think the weather, in particular the winds, may change somewhat of the thinking. My guess is South Carolina is going to try and end this game as quickly as they can. And the best way to do that is to have a similar running attack that they had against Charlotte last weekend, where they just plowed over the 49ers. Clearly, South Carolina up front should, and Buddy Pugh even mentioned this when we chatted with him earlier this week. That is one decisive advantage South Carolina has, is the size along the offensive and defensive line. But coming off the Charlotte game, would you have wanted to throw it a little more and get that passing game fine-tuned a little bit before you face Kentucky next weekend? But I'm not sure the weather is set up, especially the wind, is set up to be able to throw it down the field all that much. So we may see a relatively conservative game plan out of USC again this weekend. Or tonight rather, just go out, get the job done, run the football, break loose Marshawn Lloyd as he did last weekend, and get ready for Kentucky.
Yeah. Run the clock out as quickly as possible. And this might be a game where, and you're right, the wind's going to be a factor, and that's going to impact the throwing. So I imagine both of these teams will try and run the football as much as they can, which should speed up the football game and probably get this thing done maybe within about 3 hours or so. And then we've got Limestone playing tonight at Mars Hill. And then, of course, Saturday, the big one up in the Valley, Smitty, it's Clemson and NC State. Tigers are 6-point favorites there. And this is a top 10 matchup. This is a game, NC State and Dave Doran, they had this game circled in the summer, and they realized that was probably going to be, well, they couldn't really foretell that they were going to be in the top 10. They kind of knew Clemson would be. Now that they are there as well. But this is a game that the Wolfpack can put their stamp on the map of college football. And if they win, they can say, hey, we are college football playoff contenders now. Got a great chance to win the division because Wake will have a loss. Clemson would have a loss. This is State I'm talking about now. This is their perspective. Beat Clemson up there, move up in the polls. They're in control. And then, of course, Clemson, They realize they just keep winning. You know, Ohio State and Michigan ranked ahead of them right now by the AP. They're going to play. One of them's going to take a loss, at least one. You know, keep on winning, and things will fall back into place for them, and they'll be right there in position to get in the playoffs. So much riding on this ball game, and big players on both sides, big playmakers on both sides. Clemson's defense, Smitty, has got to get to that level that was expected of it. I mean, they were just chewed up and spit out by Wake Forest for the most part in the secondary last week. They have got to be healthy back there and play better, or it could be a tough day.
You're absolutely right. And you're right about the way you laid it out. Mike Morgan talked about that last night. I don't think Clemson is – my take on the game, however, is I don't think Clemson is ready to abdicate its position at the top of the ACC Atlantic. And for me, everything you said about NC State is correct. This is their opportunity to showcase their program for the world and say they're ready to step up and be a national contender, not a regional contender. But here's the problem as I see it. If the weather is any factor at all, it's going to affect what NC State wants to do. If this is a running football game, my money would be on DJ Uyunglele and Will Shipley and Phil Maffa ahead of Devin Leary in the NC State running game. And if we're talking about a game where perhaps the wind is a factor and you say, okay, they're going to stack the box, we've got to run the football. Yes, NC State has a terrific defense, and the numbers and the metrics say their defense is good. But my money would be on Tyler Davis and Brian Bresee and Miles Murphy to come up and be able to stop the run every bit as good, if not better, than NC State. So I think NC State would rather play this thing in a dome. If the weather is a factor, I'm actually going to favor Clemson in that circumstance. I think it could help them even if the game is ugly. Usually that helps the underdog. I think in this case it could help Clemson.
Well, the weather will definitely I say definitely. It may be out of the way. I don't know. Where Clemson is located in that part of the state and where that storm is moving, you know, maybe there'll be some wind. Maybe there'll be some residual rain by the time they kick off a little after 7 o'clock. Or is it 7:30? A little bit after 7:30. Mm-hmm. You know, most of that weather could be out of the way. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. And you're right. It indeed could be a factor. Chris, what do you think Clemson's going to have to do in that secondary, especially if they don't have some of those frontliners back? And we won't know until pregame because Dabo Swinney's not saying who's available and who's not.
A little gamesmanship on his part, and I can't say I blame him. College football does not require you like the NFL does for obvious reasons to release a injury update until, you know, right before the game. So he's smart in not doing that. I think it's actually got to start up front. I think Wes Goodwin needs to look at his guys up front and say, I need to get more pressure on the quarterback. I need to get after Devin Leary a little bit more than anything I did against Sam Hartman because that didn't work. And that's probably the easiest thing to take some pressure off a young secondary is a great pass rush. And we all know Clemson's got a great pass rush. There's no question about that. They just need to turn them loose.
Okay, going to go to the break, and I'm going to give you the recruiting report here when we come back from the break. And as we go to break, I looked this up. For most people, you move an event forward by scheduling it to happen sooner. So,
okay.
So if you're moving it forward, it's going to happen sooner. If you schedule something to move an event back, that's regarded as making it later. I'm just reading this off of a Google search here, so I stand by what I said. Back in a moment.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I love sports, and I've helped people for over 30 years. Contact me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com when the insurance company won't pay your claim or you have complicated issues. Some other business causes your business to lose money, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. When you lose a relative and find out you got cut out of a will or don't get what was promised. When you have serious injury, like from a wreck or mishap or on the job, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
If an insurance company is there to sell you insurance, shouldn't it also be there to service it with real people? At Farm Bureau Insurance, we're here to help with experienced agents ready to provide personal service when you need it most. Call today for your free no-obligation review for auto, home, and life insurance that's custom-tailored just for you.
Whether it's home, auto, or life insurance, Buddy Bridges and Farm Bureau Insurance have the right policy for you. Call Buddy today in Lawrence County at 864-923-2174.
South Carolina Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, Southern Farm Bureau Casualty Insurance Company, Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company, Jackson, Mississippi.
Hope, life, and the Great Palmetto. What do these things have in common? Scholarship dollars. The SC Hope, the Life, and the Palmetto Fellow Scholarships are funded by the lottery players of this great state. And after 20 years, you've invested over $7 billion in education. $7 billion. Impressive. The South Carolina Education Lottery. When you play, we all win.
Score a touchdown with Founders Federal Credit Union. With services like Founders Online and the Founders app, you'll enjoy all the perks of a big bank with local personalized service. Not a member? Joining Founders Federal Credit Union is easy. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership. Relax with Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
All right, the recruiting report brought to you by Seawells. Of course, you know the very best in the catering business. The folks not too far from us over here at the fairgrounds near Williams-Brice Stadium. That is Seawells, 1125 Rosewood Drive. Phone number 803-771-7385. The website, SeawellsCateringSC.com. The daily luncheon buffet, 11 to 2. Tomorrow, Friday, with the weather like it is, I don't know if they'll be open or not. Folks are going to be staying home. Schools are closed. So if you want to get over there, you might want to call in advance and check just to be doubly sure. Recruiting-wise, defensive end tight end Nick Harbor of Washington, D.C., second official of the month last weekend at Michigan. That came after a visit 2 weeks earlier at USC. And his coach telling us, that's Robert Harris, that he had a great time, enjoyed the whole visit. Academics big for him because he realizes football is pretty much the same at all these places. The academics at Michigan, they had a plan laid out for him, something in the medical field. And so that's something that resonated well with him with Michigan. He likes Harbaugh a lot. He has talked about Harbaugh positively in the past. LSU, Southern Cal, Miami, Maryland, Georgia, the others on his short list. No other official visits, as Coach said, throughout the rest of the regular season. Safety receiver KJ Bolden, 6'1", 185 of Buford, Georgia. He is a top athlete in the 24 class. He's also a track standout, sprints and triple jump. He's got family throughout the state of South Carolina, so Clemson and USC, two programs near to his heart. Going to be at Clemson Saturday. Been talking a lot to Mickey Kahn, the safeties coach. Also talked to Dabo Sweeney. Likes them both a lot. Likes what Clemson has done with their program, the feeling up there in their culture. South Carolina heavily involved as well, talking to Shane Beamer and Torian Gray and Justin Stepp. Impressed with what he hears from them as well. And he texts with Beamer on a regular basis, and he likes what Beamer is building in Columbia, and says really likes how the folks in the program there are very tight, a very family-oriented feel for him there. He's been to Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State for games. He was in Atlanta for Clemson, Georgia Tech. Over the summer, he visited Michigan, Michigan State, and Tennessee. Clemson, last night, offensive line coach Thomas Austin offered offensive tackle DJ Chester, 6'5", 305 out of McDonough, Georgia. He took an official to Auburn in June. He's going to go to Ole Miss this weekend. And USC and Clemson target 2024 defensive tackle Heaven Brown Schuler of Atlanta was offered by Oregon. USC commitment defensive end Montague Rames of Manning set as official for USC for November 18th. 2024 offensive tackle Jake Guarnera, Ponte Vedra, Florida, plans to be at Clemson tomorrow, make that Saturday, as does 2024 running back Turbo Richard of Northwestern. And in basketball, 6'11", Jordan Butler of Christ Church. His commitment decision announcement will come Wednesday at 3:30. USC, Missouri, and Auburn are the three finalists for him. And with that, I think we have covered the recruiting report for tonight. So I am going to move forward to Williams-Brice Stadium
And
get
we'll move
myself
forward
in
without you.
position for the game. And I'm going to look back at you guys doing the show. Y'all have fun and follow me covering the ball game on our website and on Twitter.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. Very windy this evening with a low of 57. Wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour. Tomorrow is a total rainout. Heavy downpours at times. Wind gusts from the tropical storm hitting 60 miles per hour at times and a high temperature of just 61. Saturday is wet to start, but gets nicer as the day moves on. We might even see a little sunshine. I'm Kevin Cohn with your On Point local weather.
Back with Travis Bedson, owner of CNT Foundations. Travis, what are foundation problems?
Foundation problems are headaches, sloped and bouncy floors, wet and moldy crawl spaces, or cracked bricks and leaning chimneys.
Sound like headaches indeed, Travis. So tell us, can CNT Foundations handle all of that?
Absolutely. We are your foundation experts.
Call 803-805-8044. CNT Foundations, your foundation experts.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting rescue crews are wading through water and using boats to rescue Florida residents stranded in the wake of Hurricane Ian. The Orange County Fire Department posted photos Thursday of crews in a flooded neighborhood in the Orlando area. Governor Ron DeSantis says the U.S. Coast Guard began rescue operations hours before daybreak. At least one person in Florida was confirmed dead on the state's eastern coast. Congress is moving quickly to avoid a government shutdown. The Senate on Thursday passed a short-term spending bill that would finance federal agencies into mid-December. The legislation also provides another round of military and economic aid to Ukraine as it seeks to repel Russia's invasion. The bill finances the federal government through December 16th, giving lawmakers time to agree on a larger government funding package after the midterm elections. More details at srnnews.com.
I'm already a big fan of Medicare Blueprint. Tim and his team saved me several $1,000s. They took a look at my health insurance. They helped me get the best possible plan. But not long ago, I reached out when we had a crisis. The big bad insurance company out of nowhere just canceled Mom's medicine for her multiple sclerosis. No warning, 30 years, same med, and just like that, gone. Here's the good news. Medicare Blueprint doesn't work for the insurance companies. They work for you. They're local. Imagine me trying to get this fixed, calling some national toll-free number. Outsourced operators never talk to the same person twice. Medicare Blueprint went to work, helped me get Mom's meds back, and how's this? Even less expensively than we were paying before. Incredible customer service and local. What a great formula. Oh, and it cost me nothing for their services. Nothing. Whether you're on Medicare or not, my mom is, I'm not. Medicare Blueprint helped both of us. Online, it's MedicareBlueprint.com or call them 708-7398. That's 708-7398.
Gas prices, grocery prices, inflation has hit us all, and it's caused the Fed to raise interest rates. As a result, after historically low mortgage rates for what seemed like forever, interest rates for a mortgage have jumped in recent months. Fran Halloran here. Let me make something clear to you. Mortgage rates are rising. They may continue to rise as the Fed tries to get a grip on inflation. What hasn't changed is the incredible customer service you'll get from Greg McCoy and Simplified Mortgage Solutions. Greg can't control interest rates. He can, however, control fees. With rates on the rise, now more than ever, you need to know you're getting the very best deal. Greg will make sure of that. He's more than just a mortgage guy. Greg McCoy is your trusted advisor. You might be surprised to learn how much Simplified Mortgage and Greg McCoy can do to help you with your biggest financial investment. Not sure? Have questions? Give Greg a call at Simplified Mortgage, 803-722-6044, or find him online at simplifiedmortgagesc.com. Greg McCoy, NMLS 119871.
You know what? I get asked every now and then, Kev, when you say my guy, do you really have a my guy at Palmetto Exterminators? Well, I really do. Ron Byers is my guy. Do you realize I've been a customer of Palmetto Exterminators for 20 years this summer? That's over the course of 3 homes, longer than my kids have been around. I'm loyal to Palmetto Exterminators for several reasons. First, they do a phenomenal job with pest control for a very fair price. It's just not a concern around my home. They take care of everything from regular visits to termite inspection, mosquito care. This is a company that's been around for more than 60 years serving the Midlands. When they come around, they're clean, they're courteous, and they're on time. Look, it's not just me. When it comes to things like those pesky mosquitoes, Palmetto Exterminators voted best of Columbia in Columbia Metropolitan for their mosquito control. I could have told you that before anyone even voted. What else can you possibly need from your pest control company? If you're looking for someone to help you, look no further than my guy, Ron Byers, Palmetto Exterminators. Online, it's palmettoexterminators.net, or call them 254-5833, 254-5833.
And as they would say on ESPN, due to no corn, we move forward in our proceedings here on Sports Talk here tonight. Chris, Pat, and Smitty with you for the remainder of the program. We'd love to hear from you as well if you're heading out to the ball game tonight. Your thoughts about the Gamecocks and SC State. What do you want to see? Either way, if you're a Bulldogs fan or a Gamecock fan, what do you want to see tonight? 888-898-2525. But normally on Tuesdays, we get to sit and talk some NASCAR with our favorite guest throughout the entire week. It's the president of Darlington Raceway. He was unavailable Tuesday. We messed up last night, so we get KT on the program here on a Thursday. Kerry, good evening. How you doing?
Hey, great to be on, Chris. I got the first team, you and Smitty. It's always good to be on Sports Talk, and Phil can I'm not going to say what he can do, but that's okay.
Well, Kerry, right off the bat with the hurricane, slowly getting here and will make landfall at some point in time around Charleston tomorrow. Anything you guys are doing at Darlington to sort of batten down the hatches at the racetrack?
Well, definitely. Our crew's been working the past actually 3 or 4 days, excuse me, Chris, in anticipation that some type of a storm system could hit us. And that goes from everything from making sure everything on the concourse is secure. We've got a lot of tables and umbrellas up there. You don't want those to take off in the air. Certainly getting rid of any kind of branches or tree lines that could possibly get caught up in some high winds. We're doing some sandbags around some low-lying places. And just making sure that everything's just kind of buttoned up. I mean, we're a big property, and if you have a big storm comes through, you're not going to be able to protect every square inch of it. But we're certainly taking some precautions and making sure that we get back on the property Monday. We've actually closed the track for tomorrow, Chris. We just thought that was in best interest of everybody, and so we'll be back there on Monday and kind of see where things are, but certainly hoping for the best during this one.
Unusually newsy Thursday in NASCAR we'll get into in just a couple of moments as they get ready to go run at Talladega, which ought to be a lot of fun this weekend. But I wanted to look back at Texas and KT, for whatever the reason, there seems to be sort of this mindset and the narrative that Texas, regardless of what it does, is just going to have a bad race. Unfortunately, I think the narrative may have played out a little bit with the problems they were having with the tires on Sunday. What was Goodyear's issue, and did you think maybe some of the drivers who were involved actually had, a little bit of a beef with Goodyear? And I realize that's trying to bite the hand that feeds you for sure.
Yeah. That Goodyear, in my opinion, has the toughest job in our sport. They got to produce a tire that's not only safe, but one that puts on good racing. And every single surface is different. No two track surfaces are the same. And so I think that they do a really good job doing that. And, this weekend at Texas, things kind of went awry. And, sometimes some of that, excuse me, Chris, has to do with the tire pressures that the teams run. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was on the competition side and going to 25 races a year. Goodyear issues a set of recommended tire pressures for that weekend. And if you go way below those, you're likely gonna blow a tire, and that's what some of these teams do. Because what it does, it gives them a little bit of an advantage, gives them a little extra speed through the corners, but it also puts a heavy load on these tires. And these tires with this new race car, I don't think there's been quite yet the chemistry that we need to see with the tires in the race car. And so I think there's still a lot of lessons to be learned. And I'll tell you this, Goodyear, I'm sure, went back and was not happy with the performance that their tire gave for the weekend, and they went back to Akron, Ohio, and certainly got to work on trying to figure out what they can do to do better. And the teams that had issues, that's not good when you blow a tire and you're leading a race. That shouldn't happen. And so, it wasn't our best. It wasn't our best look last weekend at Texas for sure. The racing there at Texas has not been the best that we've seen the last 3 or 4 years. The All-Star race this year, and then this race here recently. And I'm not sure what the answer is. I don't know if it's a track surface. I do know that they kind of changed the configuration of the track a couple years ago. They lowered the banking some, but we've got to find an answer for the racing out there. It's a big facility. It's a great market, and I think everybody's got to get to work to try to make it better.
Visiting with Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington Raceway, looking back at Texas, and we'll look forward to Talladega because there's some big news involving a Hendrick Motorsports driver to pass along in a couple of moments. But KT, Tyler Reddick gets his third win of the season over the weekend, and I guess technically he's not a playoff driver now, even though he qualified for the round of 16, didn't make it to the round of 12, and it's conceivable he may finish the year with more wins than anybody else. He's only one off the pace that Chase Elliott has right now with his 4 wins. How good a season is Tyler Reddick having? And, is he in the running for driver of the year?
He's having a great season, to be honest with you. 3 wins, a breakout year for him at Richard Childress Racing. But about, 6-8 weeks ago, he announced that he was not going to be around year after next. And so, that kind of caught everybody by surprise. And then when the announcement came a week or so ago about Kyle Busch coming over and actually taking over his ride next year, the 8 car, and then he goes out and wins the race last week. It's almost like, hey, you can take my ride, but you can't take my win type thing, right? So he's had a really good year. Tyler Reddick's a good race car driver. He's one of those guys, I think, that's probably going to be in line to win a championship at some point. And so I'm not sure exactly where he's going to be next year. I guess he could be at Richard Childress Racing, or he could be at 2311. That's all dependent really upon Kurt Busch's situation. But yeah, he's had a fantastic year, and for him to win at that oval like he did last week, I think he'd won at a couple of road courses, if I'm not mistaken. And but then for him to win that and get that win at the oval. That 1.5 mile racetrack, I think, really cemented that. I'd have to say that of all the drivers this year, he's had a top 2 or 3 performance. And we'll see how it all shakes out before the season's over. But right now, I'd say he's had as good a year as anybody.
We were talking a few minutes ago about the tire issues at Texas, and it actually caught up with Alex Bowman, who is suffering, it appears to be a concussion, or at least concussion-like symptoms. And Hendrick Motorsports announcing today, KT, he's not going to run this weekend, and they're going to bring up Noah Gragson from the Xfinity Series to take over. First off, from Bowman's standpoint, he's sitting 12th in the standings. He really needed to have a strong performance at Talladega. How does that affect him? And secondly, I saw where NASCAR has actually given him a waiver to stay in the playoff chase if he's able to run the Roval next week. So how does all that play out this weekend and then next weekend for him?
Well, I think that's only fair that they grant him a waiver. And so, I think what will happen is if he comes back and races next week at the Charlotte Roval, if he can stay inside that top 8, whether he gets a win or he can be within the top 8 in the points, then he'll move on to the next round. So, I'm glad to see that they're not penalizing him for not being able to compete because of a concussion. I watched the replay of him hitting the wall, and some people were saying, well, that didn't look like much of a hit. Well, a lot of times those hits that you think aren't much of a hit are a pretty big hit, and I kind of saw the in camera, and I mean, it jolted him pretty well. He said it was the hardest hit he's ever had in a race car. So, when that tire blows out and you're doing about 185 miles an hour in one of those turns at Texas, that's nothing compared to even if you would hit like on the interstate or something. But I mean, that's a huge hit that he had, and he took it, and certainly he's trying to get healthy. And let's go back several weeks ago. Kurt Busch's hit, he still hasn't cleared concussion protocols yet. So there's been a couple this year that have had some big hits, and it's still a very, very, very violent sport. It likely will always be a violent sport, but hopefully he can come back and compete next week at the Roval. And I hope Kurt Busch can come back at some time this year. It'd be great if he could. And I was texting with him the other day, and he was just, he's trying to get cleared and come back and where he's comfortable and get back in the race car. But we'll see. But those concussions are nothing that should be taken lightly. And I'm glad to see that, I think the drivers here within the last several years, certainly after Dale Jr. had his, the whole situation has kind of changed a lot on how they treat these things.
Did you just casually name drop that you texted back and forth with Kurt Busch?
And here's why I did. You'll never believe this, but he was at the South Carolina game last weekend, believe it or not.
Really?
In Columbia last Saturday, and against Georgia? Who were they playing last weekend? Was it
Charlotte?
UNC Charlotte. He was at the game, and a friend of mine texted me, had a picture with him, and I said, my goodness gracious. But I texted him the next morning, and I said, hey, I see you're down in Gamecock country. And he said, I always have a good time in Columbia. And he said, I really need to be around loud noises and bright lights, because that's what they say when you've had a concussion. You need to be able to handle things like that. So, he went down for that ball game, and I also saw where he was at a soccer match here a few weeks ago, I think, in Charlotte. So, that's what they would like for you to do, is to see just how you react around, big crowds and loud noises like that.
They run this weekend at Talladega. Ought to be a lot of fun. 2:00, and the rest of the races for the NASCAR playoffs on the mothership on NBC. The president of Darlington Raceway, Kerry Tharp, joining us tonight. KT, we appreciate you adjusting your schedule to suit us. Stay safe tomorrow with all this rain that's heading into the PD, and we'll catch up with you in your normal time slot next Tuesday.
Sounds good, guys. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Kerry. That's Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington Raceway. And I love how he just casually drops, name drops. You're famous when you can just say, I was texting Tom Cruise, and, he was telling me all this kind of stuff. So good for him. All right.
Right. I'm sorry, Chris. I missed that last thing. J-Lo was reaching out to me. Hold on. Go to break, and I'll take it.
Yeah, I'd hate for you to miss Jennifer Lopez getting in touch with you, my friend. I'll make sure we'll do that. So we'll slide out for you. Timeout. We'll come back. Plenty of your phone calls still to come. You can squeeze them in as we move through the next hour and 15. We'll also check in with Corn over at Williams-Brice Stadium a little bit later on as the Gamecocks at SC State get ready to open up play this weekend. They'll kick off just after 7 o'clock. All right, 888-898-2525. We'll pause for a timeout. On the other side, talk some high school football on Thursday, but we've got some. Catch up with David Shelton. He joins us next here on Sports Talk.
In Columbia, South Carolina, game days are our specialty. Whether you're watching the game from inside the stadium or from the big screen at your favorite local spot, the energy remains the same. Craft the perfect fall Saturday in a city where there is plenty of action on and off the field. From tubing and kayaking to Soda City to rooftop restaurants and plenty barbecue. We're ready when you are. Plan your weekend at ExperienceColumbiaSC.com.
I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. People often ask me, when should I start saving for college? And I always tell them, start today. September is College Savings Month, a great time to start saving for your child's education. Future Scholar makes it easy to open and manage your account online, and the plan offers options and benefits you won't find with a regular savings or investment account. So make this the month you go to futurescholar.com and see why it's the smart, easy way to save for college. futurescholar.com.
When your day calls for some winning, why not watch your favorite football team at Dave & Buster's? We've got massive HD TVs and hundreds of the hottest new games. Sip from our chef-crafted cocktail menu with exclusive drinks such as the Strawberry Watermelon Margarita or Dangerous Waters. Cheer on the team with Cantina Nachos or wings featuring one of our 12 wing flavors. When your day calls for some winning, it's time for Dave & Buster's, where you can watch the games and play the games. Locations in Greenville, Columbia, and Myrtle Beach.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for beef. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. So whether it's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with a family, make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. Smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at sccattle.org. Beef. It's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff program.
Well, they struck out the band a little bit last night along the Grand Strand here in the PD and also down in the Low Country. They'll do the same here tonight in the Upstate and also in the Midlands as the high school football season rolls on. And don't forget, tomorrow night, we will have the Sports Talk Media Network High School Scoreboard Show. It will still air tomorrow night, 10 until 12. I'm not sure it'll be as much Phil standing out in an umbrella trying to give us weather updates as much as it will be giving scores from games that have already concluded, maybe catching up with a few high school coaches. And the co-host of that program, the one David Shelton from the Charleston Post and Courier, joins us now. David, we appreciate the time. How are you guys doing down in Charleston right now?
We're doing okay. Starting to get a little cloudy, get a little windy, and no rain yet, but it's coming. We know it.
With that being said, and Charleston's certainly no stranger to hurricanes, what are they forecasting for you guys down in the Low Country tomorrow?
A lot of rain, possible hurricane force winds, depending on where it comes back on shore. Right now, it looks like it's coming right into Charleston, but it could wobble up north or a little south. But we're going to get a lot of rain and a lot of wind. Probably, they said, through the early evening, and then it should clear out.
Well, hopefully you guys will be safe, and we'll all be safe here around South Carolina. Clearly, the high school league and certainly the high school teams around the state in the PD, Grand Strand, and the Low Country made the smart decision to play last night. So you had games down in the Low Country. We won't have any tonight nor the remainder of the week. But what did you see last night? Any surprises in your mind of some of the games that took place down in Charleston?
I would not say any surprises. I mean, I guess you could say the game I was at, Woodland beating Hanahan, may have been a surprise. But both those teams were undefeated, and Woodland's a 2A, Hanahan's a 3A, but Woodland's very good. Got an excellent quarterback. Fedarian Harrison is a really good player, and made some big plays with his feet and his arm last night. So, the big thing about that game was it was the first time Woodland had beaten Hanahan in 14 tries. So it was a pretty big night. Had a good crowd, good atmosphere, a lot of fun.
Probably the biggest game, and Smitty and I were over in the Grand Strand watching some football last night, but clearly I think the biggest game of the ones that were played last evening from a state perspective was West Florence going to Myrtle Beach and beating the Seahawks for the first time. A lot of controversy about that football game, but David, in your mind, how big a win is that for West Florence to get Region 6 4A play off on the right foot, and how devastating perhaps could that be a loss for Myrtle Beach?
Well, for Myrtle Beach, I don't think it'll be devastating, but they're going to, obviously they're behind the 8 ball now. That's a really good conference. So Wilson is going to be right up there in that mix along with Hartsville and South Florence. But for West Florence, you gotta kind of start looking at those guys as a serious contender in 4A. I mean, the last 2 weeks they've beaten Burns and Myrtle Beach, and ain't a whole lot of schools in this state that can say they've done something like that. So now, granted, again, that conference is so strong. You got to bring it every week. Hartsville and South Florence, I think, are playing tonight. So, and they're obviously 2 really good teams in that conference. So, it's good to get a win, and only 4 make it out of that region. I guess they could get 5. With the at-larges and stuff, and it'll clearly be the toughest conference in 4A, especially in the lower state. It'll be, any one of those 5 teams could win any of the other regions in 4A. So we'll see how it plays out, but I don't think Myrtle Beach is, Myrtle Beach is going to have trouble winning some games because they're a little bit down, and that conference is a whole lot up. So we'll see how it plays out.
David, another good region up in the upstate and some good games tonight. Burns and Spartanburg High School, of course, they have a rich history against each other in Dorman and Boiling Springs. They've moved those games to tonight. What are you hearing about those clubs, and which ones are true contenders?
Well, I think Burns is, but I'm anxious to see how this game comes out with Spartanburg, because Spartanburg's got some losses, but they've lost to some really good teams. And this will be another good challenge for them. But if Spartanburg comes through and wins this game, then I think we're going to see that they're a legitimate upper state contender. And if Burns loses this game, that's back-to-back losses after a good start. And you just kind of wonder, maybe their early wins weren't as impressive as we thought. When they played really good teams, they've lost. So that's why it's really good to kind of see how this game goes. This is normally a game that you would see played at the end of the region's conference schedule. But now you're getting it right off the bat in the first one. So we'll know a lot after tonight.
David, last weekend, Dutch Fork lost for the first time in the regular season since I think Eisenhower was president. I mean, it's such a rare feat for them to lose in the regular season. How does Tom Notch use that to motivate his team going into region play now?
Well, I think Tom will tell you that they're not going to get a lot of gimmies in this region. That region they're in, Lexington's having a great year. River Bluff's having a great year. White Knoll's undefeated. They're going to have to play. I mean, they're going to have to show up and play. Now, granted, they normally do show up and play. So I don't think he's got to motivate them to get ready to play. I mean, they lost to a really, really good team last week.
Right.
They've also beaten some good teams. So, we'll see how it plays out. But again, I don't think they've got a lot of automatic W's left, but they'll certainly be favored the rest of the way.
David, we appreciate you hopping on board with us tonight. We'll probably talk to you again tomorrow night, and certainly look forward to having you back on board with the high school school board show tomorrow evening. So be safe down in the low country, and we'll catch up with you soon, my friend.
Sounds good. Y'all take care.
Thank you, sir. That's David Shelton of the High School Sports Report and also the Charleston Post and Courier, giving us a sneak peek at some of the games going on tonight, looking back at several of the games going on last night. And Pat, before we hit the top of the hour, probably something we should mention, some breaking news out of USC right before kickoff tonight against SC State.
That's right. And David Cloninger was where I saw this first. USC offensive line coach Greg Atkins has temporarily stepped away from the team due to minor health issues per release. Remember, Atkins had a health issue last year as well that caused him to briefly step away from the team. So just from Sports Talk, he's certainly in our thoughts, but that is some breaking news going into the game this evening for the Gamecocks.
And we'll catch up with Phil over at Williams-Brice Stadium to get an update on the game once they kick it off here in a little bit. But, Smitty, anytime you lose an assistant coach, it's a big deal, but especially in an area of need and clearly concern for the offense for South Carolina is to play that offensive line. And when their leader goes down, that's got to be a tough pill to swallow for Shane Beamer.
Absolutely. We were talking earlier in the week with Zach Willis, a former offensive lineman himself and a longtime coach, about rallying those players and now they're going to have to do it without their leader. So I think that's a point of focus, the way South Carolina's playing in the trenches. And again, we often talk about next man up in terms of players when they're dealing with something. Now that coaching staff has to scramble a little bit, and they've got to come together and fill in for Greg Atkins, who we certainly hope we pass along our well wishes. We said, Pat just told us minor health issue. We really hope it remains minor.
Absolutely. All right, top of the hour. We'll slide out, timeout. We'll come back. Second hour of the program. Catch up with Corey Miller, the pastor of pain, on the other side to give us his take on the weekend of college football. We'll do that next here on Sports Talk.
By the way, before we do what's supposed to happen here, thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Hurricane Ian has left a path of destruction in southwest Florida, trapping people in flooded homes, damaging the roof of a hospital intensive care unit, and knocking out power to over 2.5 million people. Florida Hospital Association President Mary Mayhew says hospitals are facing serious issues.
We have one large health system in southwest Florida that is without water in all of their facilities.
She says they're fast approaching a point where they will not be able to safely care for patients.
That is a urgent focus to get those patients transferred.
Hundreds of those evacuations were taking place across the hard-hit Fort Myers region, where damage cut off potable water to at least 9 hospitals. Meanwhile, Ian is now aiming for the Atlantic coast as a tropical storm, though it will probably strengthen to a Category 1 hurricane by the time it goes ashore in South Carolina tomorrow. Russia's Vladimir Putin is formally annexing 4 more areas of Ukraine after self-styled referendums condemned by Ukraine and the West as a sham.
The script for annexation was written by the Kremlin. Act 1, the so-called referendums in Ukrainian territories under Russian occupation. Act 2 will take place tomorrow at a ceremony in the St. George's Hall of the Kremlin Palace. There, President Putin is expected to take part in a signing ceremony for the annexation of these areas, raising the stakes in his confrontation with Ukraine and the West. Last week, the Russian president made it clear that any attempt by the Ukrainian army to take back these areas would be viewed by Moscow as an attack on the territorial integrity of Russia.
That's BBC correspondent Steve Rosenberg reporting from Moscow. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 458 points. More at townhall.com.
You know how much you're really paying for life insurance through work? I can almost guarantee you're overpaying for limited coverage. I'm Joel Clark, a Select Quote agent for over 20 years. My clients are shocked to learn how expensive life insurance at work really is because of a rate that's driven up by unhealthy people. Why pay more when you don't have to? For over 35 years, Select Quote has helped people save 50% or more by shopping highly rated insurance carriers. I found a 40-year-old man with high blood pressure, a $500,000 policy for only $18 a month. Don't procrastinate. Workplace open enrollment will be here soon. Let SelectQuote save you money and get you the coverage you need to protect your family.
For your free quote in just minutes, call 1-800-865-2266. That's 1-800-865-2266. 1-800-865-2266. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Full details on example policy and carrier ratings at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Price could vary by health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
The road to financial stability isn't looking too good for auto seller CarMax.
Used car retailer CarMax Incorporated said that an uncertain economic environment was starting to take a toll on vehicle demand. CarMax shares tumbled 22% to hit a more than 2-year low after the company reported second quarter results below analyst estimates and underscored the impact of inflation and rising interest rates on car sales. Auto research firm Cox Automotive, which tracks U.S. vehicle market trends, cut its forecast for new and used vehicle sales on Wednesday, citing worsening consumer sentiment.
Correspondent Bill Alexander. Battered by surging consumer prices and rising interest rates, the U.S. economy shrank at a 0.6 annual rate from April through June, unchanged from its previous second quarter estimate. It marks the second consecutive quarter of economic contraction, one informal rule of thumb for a recession. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. Very windy this evening with a low of 57, wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour. Tomorrow is a total rainout. Heavy downpours at times. Wind gusts from the tropical storm hitting 60 miles per hour at times, and a high temperature of just 61. Saturday is wet to start, but gets nicer as the day moves on. We might even see a little sunshine. I'm Kevin Cohn with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. This is The Point. Make thepointradio.com.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Yes, indeed, we are. Hour two on this busy Thursday. It's game night here in South Carolina. Gamecocks in South Carolina State just kicking off at Williams-Brice Stadium. Corn is over there. We'll check in with him periodically between now and 8 o'clock. If you'd like to be on the show, you're certainly welcome. We can squeeze in a call or two over the next hour on our South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number at 888-898-2525. Chris Bergen here in the PD. Matt Smith hunkering down in Georgetown, and Pat Daniel holding us all together, including Corn as well over in Columbia inside our Dave & Buster studios. Eat, drink, play, and catch the big games all season long at Dave & Buster's in Greenville, Columbia, and Myrtle Beach. Will and the Thrill coming up after the bottom of the hour. Just heard from David Shelton to recap some of the high school games going on last night in advance of Hurricane Ian. And it's our distinct pleasure to welcome back to the program, brand new guest, I guess somewhat. He's a really, really familiar name, obviously, to anyone in South Carolina. So we welcome back aboard the Pastor of Pain, Pop on Football, as Phil likes to call it. We say hello to Corey Miller on the hotline here this evening. Corey, how are you?
I'm doing great, actually, on this cloudy, breezy night. Now, I'm a little bit mad as Spencer Rapp just threw an interception to start this series against the SC State. So my emotions are a little hurt right now.
and it was heck. I'm just seeing the replay. Heck of a play by the DB for SC State. So obviously the start the Bulldogs wanted. I have to ask because I'm curious if you're a uniform guy because that always seems like a big deal. Gamecocks going with these throwback helmets tonight without the Rooster logo in the middle of the block C. Do you like that look for them?
I do not. I was sitting here just saying this is really ugly. I don't like it at all. It's the block C with the Rooster. This looks like Little League football helmet. I mean, I'm looking. I'm like, what is this? No, man. I understand maybe trying something different, but this one does not work for me.
Yeah, it's almost as if they forgot to put the sticker in the middle, right?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I'm like, who is this? I mean, I like the unis, but the helmet, I can't rock with that.
All right, we'll get your take on tonight's game where the Gamecocks are, and also wanted to get your thoughts on Clemson NC State momentarily, but you were honored over the weekend as one of the legends with the Giants. How did you enjoy that trip back to New York?
It was a great 4-day weekend, having a chance to go back to New York, a place where it all started for me as a professional, and 8 great years there for me, and a lot of great teammates, a lot of Hall of Famer teammates, and being that I had a chance to spent time with LT and Michael Strahan, and, Leonard Marshall, Otis Anderson, Rodney Hammond, those guys getting inducted into the Ring of Honor, being on the sidelines, watching, the guys warm up, and, speaking to Saquon Barkley. I mean, just all of that was so good. And again, I haven't been back since I left in 1998. And so I haven't seen a lot of players, and of course a brand new stadium, seeing the facilities was awesome, and just really appreciate them having me back as one of the Giants legends.
Corey, I get starstruck talking with you because of your skills and how good a career you had. But when you get around guys like Michael Strahan and Lawrence Taylor, is there a little bit of awe in your eye, or are these just, hey, these are guys I played with during my career?
Yeah, just because they're great friends of mine. It's just a family, and so I don't have that feeling, but definitely a ton of respect because of how they played the game and how successful they were at playing the game. LT. I get mad at listen to national media trying to compare Michael Parsons to LT, and I want to say you guys don't have a clue. He's not even close, to Lawrence Taylor. Yes, he's a great talent, fast, can come off the edge, play multiple positions, but he's not Lawrence Taylor. But just being around those guys and, the success they had. Of course, I was a part of that, listening to some of the guys appreciate my style of play, especially in the run game and taking on blockers. Jesse Armstead, coaches on the Giants, my teammate, saying how he appreciated me, taking up, eating up blockers and allowing him the fast flow. And, Lawrence Taylor, I appreciated him for drawing all the attention so I can, go make plays. And I tell him thank you all the time because he got me paid a lot of money. Because he jokes like, it was so weird. He's like, when I retired, this joker here, he's like, I made 12 Pro Bowls, and Corey goes out there and signs his third deal and makes more money than I made all my career. So, but that's just the way it is. And we were just reminiscing how these guys are making money now. We all be $50, $70 million rich if we were playing today's game. But yeah, it was great. Again, not so much awestruck, but definitely the respect level is amazing when I'm around my guys.
Corey Miller, the pastor of Payne, with us here tonight, talking NFL football and college as well. All right, Corey, let's talk about the Gamecocks. The interception just a moment ago against NC State notwithstanding. Where do you see this team right now coming off that big win over Charlotte, and what do they need to do tonight, do you believe, to fine-tune some things before they get back into SEC play next weekend?
Again, I said I was disappointed when I started the show with you guys. I mean, having an interception against South Carolina State, you take the ball on offense, you expect to go down and score, right, against a team that you're much more talented than. You got you bigger guys, faster, stronger, all of that facilities, and you throw an interception. I mean, that's disappointing. One of the things that they've struggled with is how they started games. I mean, even last week against Charlotte, I mean, a very slow start. First half was close. That shouldn't be that close. Now, they went away and scored 56, but it shouldn't happen. They got to figure out what in the world is causing them to start games, any game, very slow. And so they need to fix that. There's no doubt they're going to figure it out, and they'll get warmed up and win this game, I think, by many points. But, this is not going to help them, next week when they go on the road to Kentucky, a top 10 team. I mean, so they got to start to fix how they start the game. Maybe they change something up. I don't know what it is, but they are not fast starters, and you can't have this in big-time games. So, I want to see better play at this offense. They should be going up down the field. The run game took shape, I should say, last week. But they got to get the passing game going, and that's what they're trying to figure out. But it started on an interception.
Corey, I don't know if you saw this earlier, but right before kickoff, there was a story from David Cloninger, the Post and Courier, that offensive line coach Greg Atkins has temporarily stepped away from the team due to minor health issues. In your experience as a player, how big a deal is that when maybe your position coach or an assistant coach has to step away from the team for an indeterminate amount of time?
That can be tough. I mean, that can be tough. When I played, that would be really difficult. But now the fact that you have guys, assistant offensive line coaches or GAs, guys, maybe a Freddie Kitchens guy, somebody like that, as an analyst that has been around this football team that's probably, implementing their own things at practice. Because I can tell you when I was out there this summer, Kitchens was around the offensive line when we were doing one-on-one pass protection. So I think because of that, you got, numerous coaches around now. It's easy to bring somebody up that can just step right in because I think all the tough work has been done. The off-season O-line work, the summer practices. Now you're in season. Those guys, they understand the game plan. They've been at practice. So I don't think it'll be tough for these guys today to make a transition. And it may be a source of energy for these guys. Sometimes they feel like they want to play for the coach and do better for him. Maybe it's a younger guy that's more energetic, brings more energy. So all these things could be a situation that happens, but I don't think it's going to hurt this team right now, especially this time of the season.
This is Corey Miller, who was a great NFL player with the Giants and a great collegiate player with the Gamecocks. And, Corey, all that time in the NFL, I want to ask you this, why we've got a hold of an NFL player. So former Clemson Tiger Christian Wilkins apparently took a shot at Josh Allen's private parts in the huddle or in the pile last week when the Bills and the Dolphins were playing each other. So I got to ask, how many times did you go out for Randall Cunningham or Troy Aikman's private parts when you had the chance?
I saw this picture, right? And the first thing I thought about was, didn't he do something like this in like a national championship game or against Ohio State in the playoffs a few years back or something like that? They had him and Ben Boulware grabbing the guy's private.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's up with this? I didn't even think about that because, I'm like, who does this? Like, things like this happen, what we call in the pile, turnover, fumble, guys might punch somebody in the private or something like that to get them to release the ball. But it seems like he's having a history or pattern of this type of action. I don't know what to think about it. I'm like, but I can tell you this will be talked about around the leagues, around locker rooms. Like, what is this guy doing? And if he do this to the wrong person, that's going to be a problem. Because if he did that to me, we're going to have a meeting in the tunnel. We're going to have a meeting after the game is over. He's going to have to see me. I promise you that. He would have to see me. So I think he knows who to do this to, somebody that won't retaliate. Because if he does it to the wrong person, believe me, he'll stop doing it.
Well, speaking of go ahead, Smitty.
Well, I was just going to quickly transition now from Christian Wilkins to the current Clemson Tigers, and they've got a big game this week, Corey. And I thought maybe it was going to be weather was going to be a factor, but now it starts to look like it's going to be pretty nice in Death Valley. Big matchup, obviously. Do you think Clemson is up to it? Do you think NC State's up to it? Because their program doesn't have a history of stepping up in these moments. Clemson does. Clemson has paid it off in the past. So how do you think these two match up?
Well, you look at this game. Listen, NC State over the last, 5 years or so, even when Clemson won national championships, it was NC State that had a chance to knock them out of that, right? They missed a field goal to win the ball game. And they've had these type of situations year in and year out against Clemson. They have played really good football against Clemson. Beat them last year at home. So they go to Clemson. They got a seasoned team. They got a lot of older guys that's played a lot of snaps. The quarterback is really good. They got some playmakers on the outside. They can run the football with power. Defensively, their linebackers are outstanding. Got three guys that can get after you. The secondary are ball hawks. I mean, listen, when you look at this matchup, they're on the same playing level as Clemson. I mean, they're starting, you go 22 across on each side, there's not a big difference. And so the question will be, can they handle the environment? Can they deal with the emotions that's going to come along with the game? Game day is there. Everybody talking about you. Everybody wants to watch it. Can they deal with that? I think when you talk about talent, there's no big difference. Matter of fact, I would say I would give NC State the advantage just because of their offense against the secondary of Clemson, which we've seen last week in Big Folks. Clemson hasn't really played clean football, even against Furman, La Tech. Go back to Georgia Tech. The games haven't been clean. I haven't been overly impressed with Clemson's football team. Now, DJ Uiagalelei has played better. He's made better decisions with the football. But this hasn't been a dominant football team. I don't think they're a number 5 team in the country. So I think if NC State can handle the emotions, they can start fast, don't turn the ball over. I think they can win this game. And the winner of this game is going to have control of the Atlantic and the ACC, and probably going to win it, unless Florida State sneaks in there and beat one of the two. So this is a huge game for Clemson. It's a huge game for North Carolina State, and the winner going to be in control. But I like NC State in this football game to go up to Clemson and win, because I haven't seen the consistency of this Clemson football team. Defense has been an issue. I mean, the defensive line hasn't been dominant. The secondary got a lot of freshmen. So NC State can score points, and NC State, I think, right now has a better defense. And on the road, defense wins. And so I will take NC State in this ball game.
Corey, one more for you, and then we'll let you go and enjoy the football game. But speaking of the Clemson defense, and I'm kind of like you, I've been surprised that they haven't been as dominant as I thought they would be coming into the season. If you were Wes Goodwin and that defensive staff, have you done enough perhaps to turn that front seven or certainly the front four loose on the quarterback? And if not, how do you maybe get some more pressure on a guy like Devin Leary this weekend? Corey, still with us, or did he bail out, Pat?
Well, I'm seeing him connected, but I'm unable to hear him. Give me 1 second, please.
All right. I'd love to get Corey's take on this, Smitty, because I'm kind of surprised he's going to take NC State on the road. And Phil pointed this out. NC State's never played a game as a ranked top 10 team against another ranked top 10 team. So I'm not sure how they handle that environment.
No, I think that's a fair question to ask of NC State and Dave Doran. But you also, if you're an NC State fan, as Mike Morgan was talking about last night, channeling the NC State fan, saying, if not now, when? This is a Clemson team that, look, even if you're an optimistic Clemson fan and you think that DJ is taking that next step and this is a team that's going to compete and go to the college football playoff, you also have to admit they are vulnerable right now on the back end. And until that secondary starts to play better, they are a vulnerable team. So if you're NC State, if the weather's good and Leary can get protection and stand back there and fire passes the way Sam Hartman could, if not now, when? When are you going to do it?
All right, Corey Miller back with us. And Corey, a quick question for you before we let you go. Just about that Clemson defense, do you think that front four is getting enough pressure? And if not, what do they have to do to maybe start getting a little more pressure and maybe help out that very, very young secondary that you pointed out?
Well, they got to get back to what Brent Venables was doing defensively. And listen, you can go back and watch tape for a couple of years for Clemson's front. One thing that they did was blitz, right? They always were attacking. They always were slanting. They were running some type of zone dog, bringing pressure from the slot, the nickel corner. They blitzed a great deal to dictate what the offense did. They imposed their will on the other team's offense. They haven't done a good job of that. Clemson's D-line hasn't been really great. Just one-on-one guys beating another guy, and a tackle, a defensive end beating a tackle. I haven't seen that at all. You talk about KJ Henry, some of these other guys, they haven't been really good. I mean, they haven't been really good when it comes to, beating offensive linemen. And so we know that the best pass defense is a pass rush. Well, they've been lacking in that, getting sacks, getting pressure, and therefore you give these cornerbacks that time for these receivers to work, they get in trouble, So they're going to have to do better rushing the quarterback, getting in, and taking away those passing windows. And if they don't, with this young secondary, they're going to have a problem, especially when they play great teams. I mean, Wake Forest has a really good offense, but they're not Ohio State. They're not Alabama. They're not these teams that really got dudes on the outside that can just beat you one-on-one, got really good offensive linemen. They don't have that. So, that should be a concern. Yes, they're undefeated. Yes, the AP polls is at number 5. But if you watch these games, you got to say, you know what, I have some concern when they have talent, people that can match them talent for talent. They're not going to sneak and win these games. So therefore, I think NC State does. I think NC State has what they need everywhere. So, and on the receiver-wise, defensively, offensive line-wise, when you look at those things, you like their chances if they can handle the moment and handle the pressure of being on the road.
Corey Miller, the pastor of Payne, joining us here tonight on Sports Talk. Great to have him on the program in the fold throughout the football season. Corey, thanks so much for the time tonight. Go enjoy the football weekend, and we will talk with you next week.
Well, we're tied 0-0 at 8:30 to go in this ball game against South Carolina State at home. Gamecock fans, let's go to prayer. All right.
Thanks, Corey.
All right, guys. Take care.
Yes, sir. You too. Well, when the pastor says it's prayer meeting time, Smitty, I guess he's a touch concerned, and actually should be. I think Buddy Pugh's got to be pleased with what he's been able to get out of his team thus far, especially defensively. Now, they have not moved the ball at all offensively against South Carolina, but still, defensively, they've got a turnover, and they're holding their own midway through the first.
South Carolina, have they not been a real squirrely team to get a hold of? Because they ran the football well last week. Well, they line up this week. They don't run it that well. They threw it so well in the second half against Arkansas. And I think there were some observers that thought, well, maybe this is their personality. Maybe this will be their identity. There'll be a Spencer Rattler, Antoine Wells team. Well, that hasn't played out because Georgia shut that down right away. So Who is South Carolina? And I'm not sure they can answer the question. If you can't answer that question when you're playing South Carolina State, you're hard-pressed to believe the answer is going to come on the road at Kentucky. So I think Corey Miller says, time to go to prayer. I think what South Carolina needs to do as a coaching staff is they've got to make hard decisions. When the going is going to get tough against Texas A&M, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, Florida, Clemson, who are they? What can they lean on? What can they rely on? And I don't think we have that answer yet.
I think that's been a problem for them for years, is trying to find an offensive identity. Take Arkansas for an example, because they're easy. When things get going rough for them, what do? They rely on what they do extremely well, and that's run the football. They can always rely on that. Even I think this weekend against Alabama, I'll be surprised if they can't run the football against Alabama, notwithstanding what the Crimson Tide normally bring to the table. So 0-0 over at Williams-Brice Stadium. Phil's going to check in with us right before we wrap things up. But so far, so good. If you're a Bulldogs fan, though, they just had a punt that came down and was down near midfield. So South Carolina's got pretty good starting field position when they come back out for their next offensive series. All right, a little bit later on, before we wrap it up, of course, another edition of Will and the Thrill. Will Merritt and Carl Hill would drop by to give us their takes on the Gamecocks and the Tigers. Be curious about Will Merritt's thoughts about the Tigers going into this weekend, especially off of what Corey Miller had to say with regards to believing that NC State will win this weekend. So we'll get all of that just after 7:30. Your phone calls as well, 888-898-2525. Thursday, waiting on the Hurricane here on Sports Talk.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for beef. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. So whether it's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with a family, make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. Smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at scattle.org. Beef. It's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff program.
I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. People often ask me, when should I start saving for college? And I always tell them, start today. September is College Savings Month, a great time to start saving for your child's education. Future Scholar makes it easy to open and manage your account online, and the plan offers options and benefits you won't find with a regular savings or investment account. So make this the month you go to futurescholar.com and see why it's the smart, easy way to save for college. Futurescholar.com.
Life. It has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsiblysc.com.
When your day calls for some winning, why not watch your favorite football team at Dave & Buster's? We've got massive HD TVs and hundreds of the hottest new games. Sip from our chef-crafted cocktail menu with exclusive drinks such as the Strawberry Watermelon Margarita or Dangerous Waters. Cheer on the team with Cantina Nachos or wings featuring one of our 12 wing flavors. When your day calls for some winning, it's time for Dave & Buster's, where you can watch the games and play the games. Locations in Greenville, Columbia, and Myrtle Beach.
All right, back we are on Sports Talk on the busy Thursday evening. Our thanks to Corey Miller, the pastor of Payne, for dropping by. We'll keep that Gamecock Tiger discussion coming up after the bottom of the hour with Will and the Thrill. A couple of other news notes to pass along before we take our next break. By the way, Gamecocks are inside the 10-yard line, threatening to jump on the board first against SC State, and they have gone back to the ground attack, and it looks like Marshawn Lloyd off and running once again. But a couple of interesting news notes. Too bad Phil's not here to complain about this, but from Front Office Sports, Live Golf is reportedly in talks with Fox Sports to purchase airtime to broadcast its events. The deal would see Live purchase airtime on Fox rather than receive a rights fee. They would also be responsible for selling the ads and producing the events. So, Smitty, it almost appears like the old school, let's buy some airtime on the radio and then we'll go out and sell everything. So this is not a pathway to making a lot of money if you're the Live Tour.
No, and that's what's scary about the Live Tour. If you're the PGA, they're willing to throw the old model out. That's concerning. In other words, they'll spend money to make money. So it seems like they're not going anywhere for a long time.
And just because we can make fun of Phil's Yankees for a moment, of course, in case you were under a rock last night, Aaron Judge hit his 61st home run of the season, tying the record set by Roger Maris at 61 years ago. Saw this on Twitter last night, though. Aaron Judge, going into tonight's game, has struck out 167 times this season. Smitty, Tony Gwynn struck out 167 times in the decade of the 90s. How about that? So good stuff from baseball. All right, bottom of the hour break. We're back with Will and the Thrill on the other side.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. Very windy this evening with a low of 57, wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour. Tomorrow is a total rainout, heavy downpours at times, wind gusts from the tropical storm hitting 60 miles per hour at times, and a high temperature of just 61. Saturday is wet to start, but it gets nicer as the day moves on. We might even see a little sunshine. I'm Kevin Cohn with your On Point local weather.
Attention listeners, con artists have many tricks for stealing your money, but the AARP Fraud Watch Network is here to help you protect yourself and your family. We give you the tools you need to spot and avoid scams. So listen for the AARP Fraud Watch Network alerts. Use our scam tracking map to see the latest scams and sign up for prevention tips and alerts from law enforcement. To learn how to outsmart con artists before they strike, visit aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting Hurricane Ian has regained some strength after exiting Florida and taking aim at South Carolina. The National Hurricane Center says the storm spent only a few hours as a weekend tropical storm over Florida before it spun up into a Category 1 hurricane in the Atlantic Ocean. Rescue crews were wading through water and using boats to rescue Florida residents stranded in the wake of Hurricane Ian. Russia is planning to annex more of Ukraine on Friday. The move represents an escalation of the 7-month war that is expected to isolate the Kremlin further, draw more international punishment, and bring extra support to Ukraine. An annexation ceremony is planned in the Kremlin. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 458 points. The Nasdaq dropped 314. The S&P 500 lower by 78. Oil down to $81 a barrel. More details at srnnews.com.
Are you looking for free checking and free savings? Dave Ramsey here, telling you to go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank that's so big they lose the ability to treat you like a human being. At Palmetto Citizens, you're not just a number, you're a member. Join today at any of their 14 locations or at palmettocitizens.org, federally insured by the NCUA.
If you're an avid shooter or you're new to shooting, Shooter's Choice is your paradise. A firearms specialty store with all types of firearms, ammunition, accessories, AR platform rifles, shotguns, hunting rifles, and much more. Shooter's Choice has the largest and best selection of firearms in the area. Shooter's Choice is the oldest, the most professional firearms dealer in the Midlands. They've served us for more than 30 years. Family owned, they've never let themselves lose that hometown feel. You go into Shooter's Choice, you'll get experts who hunt and shoot. It's not like some big box store. Their staff has decades of experience. You just won't get this anywhere else. From the classics to the newest cutting-edge products anywhere in the firearms world, they buy, sell, and trade firearms. They have an indoor firing range for handguns and hunting rifles. If you don't want to spend the gas money, hop on ShootersChoiceSC.com and shop online 24/7. Whatever you choose, Shooter's Choice will make it easy on you. In West Columbia at 944 Sunset Boulevard or online, ShootersChoiceSC.com. Make it your first choice. your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
The Dennis Prager Show weekdays at noon right here on The Point. Take time for a visit to PragerU. We'll tackle today's issues, interview intriguing newsmakers, do some teaching and some learning together on 100.7 The Point and make thepointradio.com.
Hi, honey. I am so excited about finally taking our vacation out of the country.
Me too. We've waited 2 years for this.
But we still have plenty to do before we leave for our trip.
You're right. The travel agent said we have to have negative COVID tests.
Lucky for us, we have True Pharmacy. They can take care of all of our COVID needs.
They do travel testing too?
Yes. Isn't it great to know we have such a great pharmacy to take care of us?
True Pharmacy, 2 locations, Charleston Highway in West Columbia and Divine Street in Columbia.
Hey, it's the Cigar Militia. We want to thank the Midlands for a wonderful first year. Thank you for helping us grow. We had no idea we had so many good friends out there. One thing I love about the cigar culture is we all have our favorite brands, but we're also willing to try new ones too. Come in and get your old standby or have one of our knowledgeable staff members walk you through the humidor to your new favorite. We're at 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard in the same plaza as the Melting Pot Restaurant.
Hi, this is Chris Neely from the South Carolina Public Charter School District. Join me Monday afternoons at 5:30 as I team up with Kev for Kids First. We'll tackle the issues facing our schools, pointing out the positives with our students and teachers. Kids First, Mondays at 5:30 on The Point.
Drop top Porsche, rollie on my wrist, diamonds up and down my chain. Cardi B straight stunning, can't tell me nothing. Bossed up and not change the game. It's my big bronze boogie, got all them girls shook. My big fat, got all them boys cooked. Went from dollar bills, now we popping rubber bands.
All right, back we are on Sports Talk on a Thursday night. We'll catch up with Will and the Thrill in just a couple of moments. Smitty, for the first time this season, there is a right to celebrate a little bit in the USC camp. Marshawn Lloyd taking a little swing pass into the end zone from 10 yards out. They convert a 2-point conversion. And so South Carolina with an early 8-0 lead. And for the first time this season, coming into Game 5 now, the Gamecocks have scored an opening quarter touchdown.
Let me ask you, and of course they went for 2. And,
Yes.
Again, out of kind of a funky formation, like kind of modified swing gate for those that haven't seen how South Carolina operates. And they do this sometimes. And they do it. I know why they do it. They do it to keep the players engaged on special teams during the week. But when it plays out, and of course, Pete Limbo's got to earn his salary as special teams coordinator. Every college doesn't have one. Chris, are you a fan? You see Shane Beamer is trying to build excitement in the program, trying to build this program. And one of the ways he does this is with fake punts, 2-point conversions, fake field goals, et cetera. Are you a fan of the way he's handling special teams, trying to keep the guys involved and excite the fans with it?
It's really hard to argue because they've had such success. I don't think they beat Georgia State without their special teams. I don't think you can argue that point otherwise. But I am not a fan of going for 2 unless you absolutely have to. Now, against South Carolina State, it probably won't come back to haunt you. But if they had let's fast forward or rewind, however Phil wants to view it, to next weekend, same scenario against Kentucky. Are you going for 2 right off the bat to try and go up 8-0? And then if you miss it, you're chasing points the rest of the game.
That's absolutely fascinating, Chris. And I you know what we've got to wait and see? I think what we have to wait and see is who this South Carolina team is. And by that, I mean how good they are, right? So is this in the next 2 seasons, is this a 7-win team or an 8-win team? Are they starting to chop wood and take shots at the top of maybe not Georgia, but maybe they're taking shots there with Florida and Tennessee and jockeying for position in the SEC East. How will this play out? Because, Steve Spurrier, here's one of the things he would do. He went for it on 4th down often.
Right.
That was part of his personality is his teams went for it on 4th down. And sometimes it looked like almost out of frustration, right? Like you guys didn't execute on 3rd down. So you got to stay out there and run this play again. I'm going to make sure you know how to run this play. So sometimes it really paid off and sometimes it would bite them. But eventually I think what happened is the players realized he had confidence in both his play calls and their ability to execute. And so it wasn't just about that play. It was about what he was building. building for the future, that in 3-4 years, that would be part of their personality, that he would trust them to make those plays and they would make them when the time counted. And I'm just curious, is that Shane Beamer's thought process, or is this just a way to keep them engaged, on a random Tuesday to practice some of this and make sure those guys are really engaged on special teams? I don't know the answer to that, but what you just said is interesting. Will there be a time against Tennessee, against Florida, against Clemson, one of these plays will be a big-time kind of leverage play in the game? Either it plays a role in either pulling an upset or in losing a game that they really could have won had they played it straight up. And I'm fascinated to see which one happens first to Shane Beamer. He's done all this, and none of it has played an outcome right in any of the scores. I mean, maybe you're right about Georgia State, but that was blocking punts. That's not gimmicky. That was effort. But I'm just wondering, will an onside kick, that happened in Nebraska and Scott Frost, an onside kick that they didn't get came back to haunt him. He's fired 2 weeks later.
Well, and speaking of onside kicks, as we were talking, that's exactly what South Carolina tried after a penalty against South Carolina State on the touchdown. It was a face mask against Marshawn Lloyd that moved the football inside SC State territory and up to nearly midfield. South Carolina kicked off from the 45, did not recover the onside kick. And now SC State, with some pretty good field position, has moved it into USC territory. So some of this stuff is cute and fun, and if it works, it's great. But sometimes I think you just still have to go play old school X's and O's and just let the game play itself out.
Yeah, and we can now ask Carl Hill about that. And Carl's perfect. Carl, I know you've got your eyes on South Carolina and South Carolina State. Hey, Carl, and I don't know if you heard that question I posed to Chris, but what do you think about South Carolina and the way that they will either onside kick sometimes, or it seems like they plan these things during the week, fake punts, keep the guys engaged? Do you think this will pay off long-term for Shane Beamer, the way that he's putting so much of an emphasis on this, or do you find it gimmicky and wish he would play straight up?
I don't really think it's gimmicky because there's times in a ball game that you're going to need to go for two. There are times in a ball game that you're going to have to try your onside kick and see how it works and see if the kicker can actually complete a good kick to give our team a chance to get the ball. So there are times those things work. And when you're playing against a team like South Carolina, hell, if you're ever going to try them and see if they work, this is a game to try them on. I don't like a lot of the gimmicky stuff, but this is kind of what get right week, second week for South Carolina. So that you can play around with a game like this. You can't do this against a Tennessee or a Kentucky or even Texas A&M, some of the SEC teams, the 6 SEC teams we have coming up in a row. But it's South Carolina State. What the hell? Have some fun.
Chatting with Carl Hill, one half of Will and the Thrill here on Sports Talk, efforting to get Will Merritt to join us, get his take on Clemson and NC State this weekend. So, Carl, since the game right now is going on, we want to ask you to sort of walk us through the first 8 minutes of this week's game against SC State. But what was your takeaway from what you saw last Saturday when the Gamecocks really bloodied the nose of Charlotte with their running game?
I was really disappointed the first 2 games of the season, only because I witnessed some practices and some scrimmages, and I call it last scrimmage for South Carolina Head, week 0. They kind of, in my mind, kind of regressed a little bit, and I was really disappointed how the defense played. They weren't playing with a lot of aggression. The offense didn't have any identity. I've seen the stuff that they do, and I said, this stuff would work, but then now we're not doing it. And then you come into last week, you get right week for the offense. It's trying to the offense is looking for a definable ability. What can we do that everybody can see that we can do well? And that's kind of the things they do well is run RPO, those slants, those short passes, then go deep ball. That's what they did all summer long and look impressive. And that's what they did last week, and that's what they're going to plan on doing this week. Defensively, they're not looking. They're totally different in mindset and totally different process in what they're trying to find. They're just trying to find a definable success. They know they're good, but they're not having success doing what they're doing. They got to kind of. It's the players on defense. We're not doing what coach asked us to do. We need to suck it up and try to be great. Right now, I don't think we have a lot of guys on defense that want to be great, but a few guys in the secondary.
Spencer Rattler is an interesting story, I think, and we were chatting about this during the break. Carl, I wanted to weigh in with your expert opinion. He just threw his 6th interception of the season and now has 3 touchdown passes, with one he tossed to Marshawn Lloyd a little bit earlier in this ball game. When you watch him play, what are you seeing from him? And do you see the same quarterback that maybe we saw at Oklahoma? Is it different because maybe the offensive line or the skill players are different at USC than they were at OU? What are you seeing thus far from Spencer?
It's kind of what when you guys first asked me about the offense doing some of the scrimmages I've seen, and I told you guys the reason he got benched at Oklahoma was he would throw really interceptions that doesn't make sense at all. It's like, why are you even throwing that ball? And he did some of that, but he's talented enough that I think we can overcome it. He just got to get better, and then we got to make sure we're just not throwing it deep. And the first interception really wasn't his fault. He hit the guy and took that ball. So those you can't really blame him for. I didn't see the last one, but he just got to be a little bit more careful with the football.
So give us an idea, because this game has been moved due to weather. I don't know if you ever dealt with that during your playing career. I'm sure you played on a short week, but you probably were planning for it. How difficult is it to change up the routine on the fly, say 48, 72 hours before you actually play, and do what South Carolina and SC State are having to deal with tonight, moving a game early in the week from Saturday back to Thursday?
If you're not beat up and bruised up, you're happy as the devil that you moved up the game, because what ended up happening by moving up the football game, you're going to go in Friday, Saturday, you're not scrimmaging, you're not doing anything. You get the chance to be a college kid and then get ready to play Kentucky next week. You get a little bit of time off and you get some rest. It's just, to move it up is a great thing for South Carolina, because it gives those guys a little bit more free time and time to kind of reflect on what they got to do the next 6 ball games.
Carl, the Thrill Hill.
Just let them roll, man.
I get you.
Carl, the Thrill Hill, former freshman All-American linebacker at South Carolina in the Joe Morrison days. Carl, I want to ask you about Clemson a little bit as well, and the other team that you've been keeping an eye on. You know, they struggled in the secondary, and when that's going to happen, we know that from the youth out there, the injuries they've been dealing with. But let's say you're on that team, especially as a linebacker. What are you doing? What are you imploring your teammates to do? Because they're not pressuring the quarterback enough, and then your secondary needs help. So you're kind of you're caught in the middle there as a linebacker. What's your role there as a team leader when one unit like that is struggling so severely and so obviously?
And there's kind of like a military rank of who can say what to who. Even though you're a team leader, even like I was. I go and talk to the defensive line leader and say, man, these guys behind me suck. Y'all need to get to the ball. Y'all got to get there. This is up to y'all, man. If y'all don't do it, man, they killing us back there. So you kind of join unions with the guys that's a strong group to protect the guys who are not. And then you look back to them and you like, hey, you look up to the lineman and say, okay, it's 39. They're going to throw it. So you got to get back there. You got to get back. And then you look back to your secondary. Hey, y'all got this. Let's go, man. Let's go now. It's your linemen. There comes some problem right now as talented as their defensive line is, and not why they're not getting pressure. Is the coach is not sicking them, or they just. I don't understand why their defensive line is not getting that kind of pressure. And if they're going to allow teams to have that kind of pressure, Clemson gets no pressure, and you got to have pressure. If they allow this, it's going to be an interesting season for those guys, and it could be interesting this weekend.
Well, and let's ask the other half of Will and the Thrill. Will Merritt joining us now. We'll ask the general of Clemson discussion for us. Will, first off, thanks for dropping by, and we appreciate the time. So your thought when you watch the Clemson defense, do they need to get more pressure, as Carl was pointing out?
How's my good friend, Carl?
We're doing great, buddy.
Man, I'm so glad to hear your voice. But I agree with Carl. You have to get off the field. I mean, period. If you're going to be a defensive team, you've got to find a way to get off the field, period. And I think it starts up front. I think you put too much emphasis on the secondary. But I mean, really, they have to get push up front, and if they don't do that, then I mean, you're never going to get off the field, because teams can just sit back there and throw the ball all over the field, and I don't think that's fair to say that a defense is not doing their job. But I mean, regardless, I mean, you have to get in the backfield, and you have to put pressure on the quarterback. You have to put pressure on the running backs. You have to put pressure on those guys. That's the way a defense works. I mean, Carl, I don't know if you feel the same way I do, but that's
absolutely.
I think that's the way it works.
Well, guys, the boss is trying to get in and make his presence felt from over at Williams-Brice Stadium. So we appreciate you guys joining us tonight. We'll enjoy the game this weekend. I know that'll be one that'll keep your attention throughout the evening on Saturday. Carl, enjoy the rest of the SC State game, and we'll catch back up with you guys next week.
Thank you, guys. Go Cox.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Carl. All right, let's slide out for a quick timeout. As I mentioned, the ball, Smitty, he wants to at least earn his keep tonight since we sent him over to the game. Might as well get a report from him. Gamecocks leading 8-0 as we go to the second quarter with South Carolina State. So we will take our final timeout of the evening, come back, get a live update from over at Williams-Brice Stadium, and wrap things up on this busy Thursday. Glad to have you on board here on Sports Talk.
Hey folks, it's Mike Morgan for Gibson Insurance. Former Gamecock player Bo Mobley and former coach Stuart Lake want you on their team for all your insurance needs. Now, cost-effective solutions is what they're all about for the now and for the long term. They're licensed with every insurance company in the state. They've got offices in Columbia, Greenville, and Sumter. But if you're listening right now, let me direct you to call Bo Institute today at 803-605-0029. That's 803-605-0029. Let my good friends take great care of you.
If you're looking to stay hydrated this summer, turn toward a southern favorite, sweet South Carolina watermelons. One slice is equivalent to a glass of water and is just as effective as sports drinks for hydration. If you don't believe us, you can ask the Palmetto State's top football teams. The SC Watermelon Association will be serving up slices after summer practice to keep our teams fueled and hydrated. Visit scwatermelon.org for all the details and look for ripe South Carolina watermelons in your hometown.
Hi, this is Phil Kornblut of Sports Talk here with Major Billy Downer of the Department of Natural Resources. What words of wisdom do you have for those hitting the water this summer?
Phil, collisions can be prevented easily if every vessel operator fulfills three major responsibilities. One, practice good seamanship. It's the responsibility of every boat or PWC operator to take all necessary action to avoid a collision. Two, keep a proper lookout. Failing to keep a sharp lookout is the most common cause of boating collisions. And finally, maintain a safe speed. Remember, boat safe, boat smart.
Your home is where your memories live. It's where you laugh and where you love. We understand the importance of the valuables under your roof, tangible and intangible alike. So no matter what's around the corner, we'll be there, offering you and your family the support that's made Farm Bureau Insurance a trusted name for nearly 70 years. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at scfbins.com.
Call me, Alex Satterfield, at 803-749-9171 for all of your Midlands insurance needs.
Always a lot of fun with Will and the Thrill. We appreciate those guys dropping by to visit with us here tonight on Sports Talk. Final segment of the program. Might have time to squeeze in a call or two if you'd like to jump on board real quickly before we head off into the atmosphere for the evening on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number at 888-898-2525. And did you know that since 2002, more than $2.2 billion in lottery proceeds has been used to fund life scholarships for the state's college-bound students? Learn more about the South Carolina Education Lottery's impact at sceducationlottery.com/educationwins. And playing for fun is a win for education. Smitty, I thought Carl's point about the short week and really having to adjust things on the fly was pretty interesting. Said the guys, just let them be. Let them go be, college students and have some fun with this. And maybe that's the plan. But I was chatting with Josh Vincent, who's the athletics director at Socastee High School last night, because obviously everybody's moving games. And I just asked him, logistically, how difficult is it to move a high school game from Friday to Wednesday? And he said he had 50 people on his list that he had to call and verify with them before they could finally make the decision to move a game. Now, if a high school is dealing with, 50 different people they've got to call, can you only imagine what a university has to deal with to try and move a football game like this?
Absolutely. And logistically, what you have to deal with. And, two universities, South Carolina State obviously had to change a lot about what was going on with their week as well to make sure this happened. And they got the Marching 101 there and everything. But I'll tell you what this does now as we spin it forward. And Pat asked this question, or was very curious about this Tuesday at Shane Beamer's press conference. And Shane Beamer shrugged off all the questions. But now it's upon us. You know what this means is an extra day of prep, or really 48 hours of prep for Kentucky and that trip up there. So South Carolina gets extra time to heal. They should be as healthy as they've been since game one, since the Georgia State game. And they ought to be able to game plan, and those players ought to have it down cold by the time they make that trip up through the mountains to Lexington.
Well, and let's find out how things are going over at Williams-Brice Stadium. As a sluggish start once again, but the Gamecocks finally figured out a way to get a touchdown in the first quarter. And Phil, looks like they're starting to move away just a little bit from SC State as Phil Kornblut joins us now from Williams-Brice Stadium.
Yeah, guys, early in the second quarter, and the Gamecocks are leading by the odd score of 15-0. They did score a touchdown about midway through the first quarter, and they tacked on a 2-point conversion using an unorthodox alignment, kind of the old swinging gate alignment, and had a direct snap to Tonka Hemingway, who ran it in for the 2-point conversion after the Gamecocks had scored. Marshawn Lloyd scored the touchdown on a little dump off pass from Rattler, and he beat the defenders to the pylon with a touchdown. It's about a 10-yard catch and run for him. And Lloyd's had some big plays here in the opening half of the ball game as the Gamecocks, as you mentioned, Chris, sort of starting to wear down the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs had a little excitement early on the second play of the game. Rattler tried to go deep to Xavier Leggett, and he actually hit Leggett, the ball didn't hit him right in stride. It kind of led him a little bit, and Leggett did get his hands on it, but he bobbled it, and then a state defender tipped it, and then another state defender intercepted it. And so that gave State a little bit of excitement at the opening of the ball game, but they couldn't move the ball against the Gamecock defense, and they ended up punting. And so USC took that lead, and then just a few moments ago, running out of the wishbone, they get it down to the 1-yard line. They line up in the wishbone. They give it to Jaheim Bell. He runs in for a 1-yard touchdown. The extra point is kicked this time. Gamecocks are up by a count of 15-0 here in the second quarter. And as you might imagine, the stats all favor the Gamecocks. Rattlers having a very good first half, 11 of 12 for 112 yards and a touchdown. Lloyd's got 5 carries for 52 yards. Jalen Brooks had a nice deep ball catch, and he has 2 catches for 60 yards on the night so far. Corey Fields for State, 2 of 4 for 7 yards. Tyrese Nick rushing for 40 yards on 4 attempts. So it's 15-0 early in the second quarter. Got a smallish crowd, as you might expect. Good turnout of the student body, but elsewhere around the stadium, it's a scattered crowd, as you would expect here on a game that was thrown together a few days ago, and the weather is threatening. But those who have turned out for the Gamecocks are certainly supporting the team. They're excited about what they're seeing on the field, and want to see the Gamecocks keep on doing what they're doing and then get a few days off and then get to work for Kentucky.
Phil, in the final moment we have, I noticed on the game notes that it was supposed to be reunion weekend as the 2010 through 2013 teams were supposed to come back and I'm assuming be honored during the game. That was all prior to moving to Thursday. Are those teams in attendance tonight? Do you know?
No, they're not. They have obviously postponed it. And with the other weekends filled with other activities, they probably will not reschedule that this season. It's something they'll try and do probably looking at the 23 season.
All right, and you'll be able to check out Phil's constant coverage up on our Twitter pages, SportsTalkSC, and then afterwards all the post-game recaps, the audio, the video with Corn and everything else up at SportsTalkSC.com. Corn, we appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the game. Talk to you tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a great evening and batten down those hatches.
No doubt. It's going to be rough. Smitty, be safe down there, my friend, at Georgetown. You guys are going to get it right before we do here in the PD, but we're all going to be inundated with rain tomorrow for sure.
Yep, we'll come together, all these communities, Charleston, Mount Pleasant, Georgetown, all through Myrtle Beach, Surfside. We'll all come together and hang together. Everybody stay safe. We'll all be thinking about you from Sports Talk.
It's what we do here in South Carolina, folks. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the evening. We'll talk back to you tomorrow, 6 o'clock, right here on Sports Talk.